Good evening, Danvers. My name is Mark Zuberek, and welcome to the Topics of the Town news for May 7th, 2020. I have tonight with me two of our three selectmen candidates, and I have Tim Donahue and Matthew Duggan. So welcome, gentlemen, and I have invited Maureen Bernard, and I guess she's been tied up with work, so she will not be coming on with us. We'll see what happens later on. Today, I have the honor of hosting this candidate forum for our candidates for selectmen. One of the things that I've done on the previous shows is when I have a quote, I like to present it, and this is very appropriate because I've used this before. When the people fear their government, there is tyranny. When the government fears the people, there's liberty. And what we'll be talking today is with our candidates for our local government, basically, our Board of Selectmen. Now, I have a story that I've been using, and this is a Mother Bear's coronavirus pandemic lessons. Nothing wrenches the mind away from the pandemic quite like realizing you may have stepped between a mother bear and her cubs. We need to protect our liberties and our freedoms in spite of what our government is doing to us. Mink, our famous New Hampshire mother bear, has something to teach us all through her inspirational journey home from exile. She's been in hibernation for a while. Her emergence from hibernation a few weeks ago with a lustrous coat and three playful cubs in tow offers us all inspiration for surviving anything, including the pandemic and the shutdown of so much in our lives, and for finding our bearings in the uncertain times ahead. Today, we have learned that our closures are continuing. All closures and quarantines are voluntary, and we have to remember that. And we are voluntarily obedient to our elected authorities who are recommending that we abandon our liberties and religious commitments and stay in hiding without means of feeding our families. We are held hostage in our own homes with no end in sight. State government has now instituted wearing masks in public with a threat of a $300 fine for disobedience. This is unheard of in this country. We are now under martial law and don't even know it. We are becoming a police state due to the actions by our elected officials. Need to recall the government elite. And I'm talking to both of you because you are going to become our local government one way or another. We have to ask why our lives and small business jobs are not essential, but our elected and appointed government elites are essential. Where is the leadership of our elected and appointed officials? They want us all to become pets of the government. So, as an introduction, I thought this was appropriate because I have experienced some of this totalitarianism and dictatorship when I was growing up back in the old country. And if you watch some of the demonstrations that I have filmed, please review that. So now that we are coming to the subject of the candidate forum, Topics of the Town News has conducted a candidate forum for the last 10 years. This year, the election process has been unpredictable and has seriously hampered the usual campaign in our town. This forum is our contribution to introduce the brave individuals that offer themselves for election to the selectman's office in our town. We provide an opportunity for candidates to present their credentials and offer a reason to vote for them on June 2nd, 2020. That is the scheduled election date, and that was discussed at the Board of Selectmen's meeting. And Joe Collins has made it very clear that we'll be able to vote at the high school on June 2nd. So, not to belabor this any further, I would like to introduce the Danvers Selectmen candidates. And first one that we have on our list is Maureen Bernard. She is not here at the moment, but we will contact her at a later date. Timothy Donahue is a candidate that has signed up for this assignment, and Matthew Duggan is with us as well. So to start off, what I'd like to do is give Timothy Donahue an opportunity to present their formal campaign, and the forum will be informal, but as we know, time is a limited entity, so please keep your introductions to 2 minutes at this time. So Timothy, would you please introduce yourself and give us some reason to go and vote on June 2nd?
Well, thank you, Mark, and thank you for the good introduction, and thank you for allowing me on your show. As Mark said, my name is Tim Donahue. I am running for selectman because, plain and simple, I love this town. I grew up in Ipswich. I went to high school at Bishop Fenwick, and my first introduction to this town was my first job at 18 years old when I was a junior in high school. I started work at Costco, and once I graduated, explored a career with them. I moved down to Everett when that store opened and became a supervisor, working my way up into management. After which, I also worked at Trader Joe's for about 7 or so years, working through my management experience there. During this time, I also met my wife, who grew up in Danvers. We got married here, and we were afforded the opportunity to purchase the house that she grew up in. So we bought our house on Locust Street. A couple years later, we had our first child. And 9 years later, we're here. So after my wife got pregnant, we decided the best course of action would be that I would stay home and take care of the kids while she continued on her job. At the time, she was doing really interesting work with astronauts right up in space, live action, as well as saving lives through other aspects of her career. At that time, I was leading people to put groceries on shelves, and it was a fairly simple decision. So I decided to work nights and weekends. I began a landscaping company, and 6 years after being a stay-at-home dad, working nights and weekends, went out and did it full time. I was able to hire my mother to watch the kids outside of school, and I blossomed into a great career. So right now I'm very comfortable and happy to move on to a new portion of my life.
Thank you,
be a selectman.
Thank you, Tim. I appreciate that. And now what we'll do is we'll hear an introduction by Matthew Duggan. And please, Matthew, go on. We got 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. And good evening, Danvers. My name is Matthew Duggan. I'm a candidate for your Board of Selectmen. And just want to give you a brief background of myself. I grew up in Goshen, New York, which is about an hour's drive north of Manhattan. And I moved to Boston area after high school and worked in construction for a few years. I then went back to school and earned degrees at UMass Boston and at Bentley Grad School. And I've been in the information technology field for more than 30 years. I worked for several major corporations, including Lockheed Martin, Bell Atlantic, and Verizon. And for the past 13 years, I've been with Hewlett Packard Enterprise, and my account is the Blue Cross Blue Shield of Massachusetts, where I support their website and much of their subscriber data. I moved to Danvers 20 years ago this month, and I live on the corner of Chase and Bayview in the Back Bay by Plains Park. And I've been involved in the community pretty much since that time. My first introduction to community service per se is with the Danvers Bipeds and Ingrid Berry back in '02. I served as a board member and a VP for a while. The Bipeds, for those that don't know, is fought for the rail trail initiative for many years until the town signed the lease with the MBTA. So that was a proud accomplishment of mine. And for anyone that is used the trail, I'm sure they can agree. I've also served on the Danvers Family Festival as a board member, and with supporting the ad book and the oldies night event. And I've also been a town meeting member here in Precinct 1 for the last 14 years.
Time's up.
Thank you, Matt. That was great. I have a follow-up question now. Just to give everybody an opportunity, we have developed 7 questions that will be asked for each candidate with consideration of time.
You can alternate.
We will alternate the questions, and the first question goes to Tim Donahue. Matthew Duggan. I'm sorry, Matthew Duggan. If you need more time, please reserve the response for the closing statements, and you can pick that up at that time because we'll have availability of 3 minutes. My question, or our question, is number 2 is, and you've already explained this, is who are you and what qualifications will you bring to the Board of Selectmen? What specific experience do you bring to the table, and how will that experience differentiate you from the other candidates? Matthew.
1 minute.
So I mentioned I've been a town meeting member here in Precinct 1 for the past 14 years, and that really kind of is an everyday type of responsibility. So I have constituents contact me on a regular basis, and I convey those issues to town hall. I attend public meetings at town hall on a regular basis with various boards, ZBA, planning board, Concom. So I have a really good understanding of what the issues are and the types of applications and items that those boards deal with on a weekly or a monthly basis. I think I understand the budget very well from participating in that every year as a town meeting member. So again, I'm it's pretty much 365 in terms of my engagement.
Time's up, Matthew. Thank you very much. Tim, I'm going to repeat the question, and as you already said, who are you and what qualifications will you bring to the Board of Selectmen? What specific experience do you bring to the table, and how will that experience differentiate you from the other candidates?
1 minute.
1 minute.
Gotcha. So if I start talking about everything I've volunteered for and donated to and all that, I would need more than an hour, let alone a minute. So I'm going to focus on my qualifications. I have, for my entire adult life, worked roughly 100 hours a week, 80 to 100 hours a week, if I include childcare as well. I've worked very different types of jobs throughout different areas of the region, the Essex County. I've been all over, as well as right in Boston and wherever else. I've run my own company for almost a decade now, including bookkeeping, including every aspect of it. Due to my job, I am out right in the community helping everybody. This also plays into being a meeting member, where I am out in the community. I am able to actually flex my time so I can go meet somebody in the middle of the day if that's necessary. basically, as a selectman, I want to be able to be here to serve you, and I can draw on that through friendships I've made in town, through contacts, through going to meetings, through being on different things, not only within Danvers, but also in other towns as well.
Time's up. Thank you.
You don't need me here.
That was great.
You don't need me
Yes,
here.
yes, I do.
No, you
Just,
don't. You gotta give them a warning.
okay.
Okay, guys, this isn't staged. You need to give them a warning with 10 or 15 seconds ago, so they know how to close it.
Well,
And
we'll
it's
do
not.
that. Okay.
Okay?
The next question will be to Timothy Donahue. And the question reads as follows. Why are you running for the Board of Selectmen this year, especially during such upheaval in our society and the restrictions in campaigning and access to the voters? It is a strange campaign season, as we all know. Timothy?
So I decided to run for selectman. Actually, the thought was put in my head by somebody else. So somebody had suggested it back in January, and I explored the idea and thought about it and thought about what I had to offer to the town. And so I really, at that point, decided it was something I had to do, and not just because I wanted to, because it's something that I would love to give back to the town. The current situation we're in is absolutely incredible. I like to call it an adventure because we have no control over it. We're along for the ride. So when the decision was made back in January, I could not have foreseen any of this. I was planning to launch my campaign the week that COVID actually came here. I had talked to a couple of selectmen to get ready, just to get some opinions and see what I could do to move forward. And I am extremely happy to have made this decision to represent you, Danvers. That's why I'm here, is for you.
Thank you,
Perfect.
Timothy. That was good. Now John's happy, so now he's on time.
Well, at least you
Yeah, all right, all right. Oh, I miss you, John.
Yeah, I
you
miss you
should come
too.
on the show and stay with us.
Let me go to the bathroom for a while.
All right, Matthew. Why are you running for the Board of Selectmen this year, especially during such upheaval in our society and the restrictions in campaigning and access to the voters? It is a strange campaign season.
Right, it's the campaign season from hell. That's right. So I mentioned just a few minutes ago about the 14 years of service as a town meeting member in Precinct 1 and my enthusiasm and perseverance for representing my constituents. And I have no problem attending meetings and standing up at the podium and challenging the decisions that some of these boards make. And now I feel that this is the appropriate time to take that energy and represent all residents.
Great, thank you.
Wow.
Now that was short and sweet.
Matt's up now. First.
Matthew is up next for this question. How do you plan to campaign and overcome the distancing and access restrictions imposed by the governor on you and the voters of Danvers? Assuming we will have the election in June, what do you consider the most important method to get your message to Danvers residents? Matthew.
Sure. So part of that is proprietary information that I'm not willing to share in a public forum. But I must say that a bullhorn is kind of I've determined that will be an effective way to convey my message as I drive through the neighborhoods of Danvers.
Wow. So you're following Mayor Walsh in Boston, huh? Well, that's
It's
good.
from like the 60s when LBJ would, campaign on horseback. So something along those lines. But I do have, I've had to modify my strategy because, initially I wanted to kick it off at the pancake breakfast and just everything has just gone sideways since then. So I've had to kind of tweak my campaign a bit. But I think at the end of the day, it's going to be very effective.
Thank you, Matthew. That was great. Now, I'll just repeat the question again for Timothy. How do you plan to campaign and overcome the distancing and access restrictions imposed by our governor on you and the voters of Danvers? Assuming we will have the election in June, on June 2nd, what do you consider the most important method to get your message to Danvers residents? Timothy.
So, Mark, it has been a challenging season. As I said in the last question, I had intended to start my campaign the week that COVID hit. It's been challenging. It's been interesting. Even lawn signs were a challenge to make the decision to do that, where not as many people are driving. We don't have the option to stand up downtown and hold signs. It's really a new and different way to try to do things. And honestly, we're figuring it out as we go. Where everything is still so fluid, we still have another 2 weeks before the most updated opening date comes to fruition. So we'll have to see what happens. I do have several contingency plans and a few ideas here. And as Matt says, that is proprietary information at the moment. But I do look forward to doing as much as I absolutely can, because it's really the people of Danvers that makes this decision and not me.
Thank you, Timothy.
Timothy is next.
Timothy is next. And the question that I have for Timothy, and we have plenty of time, so that's a good thing. But this proprietary information, I don't understand, you guys. I mean, how can you keep that away from the residents? How can you keep it away from me? I'm used to campaigning out on the street, out in the square, out in the neighborhoods. What? Well, I hope you have a nice white horse to run on. Well, I hope things work out better, because, as far as we know right now, the governor is supposedly making some relief statements in regards to golfing we're going to be able to do as of today. And we're going to be able to buy a gun as of today. So maybe this is a step in the right direction. It'll give you an opportunity to get out to the neighbors and talk to them. Okay, so
Tim is next.
Tim is next.
Yes.
And the question I have here is, what will you propose to approve or change when elected on the Board of Selectmen? And this is to how will you affect the functions of the Board of Selectmen when you get elected? Timothy?
So I don't want to make any major changes. I don't think our Board of Selectmen is broken in any way. I think they work together for the best interest of the town, for their opinion of what the best interest of the town is. I can't argue that when it comes to their dedication. I can't argue their commitment. They are more or less in a volunteer position, receiving only a small stipend. So they wouldn't be there if they didn't want to be there for some reason. And from the dedication that many of them have, it's very obvious how much they care about this town. I have the ability, through my experience of dealing with evaluating many of the topics that have come up recently, and there are some things that I've agreed with and there are some things that I have disagreed with, but it's the conversations along the way and making the best decision that I would like to be a part of.
Thank you, Timothy. That was great. Matthew, I'll repeat the question. What will you propose to improve or change when elected to the Board of Selectmen? Matthew.
Yes, I don't really have any plan like that. I don't have any secret agenda. And I know all the current selectmen and often have sidebar conversations with them. I respect each and every one of them. I recalled years in the past, maybe 15 years ago, when there was a lot of infighting and there was a lot of disrespect shown by the board at that time towards residents, people that came before them, town employees. So I would just say that I'm excited to work alongside the current selectmen, and I have no plans to be disruptive or cause any kind of controversy.
Thank you, Matthew. that was good.
Matthew now, because.
Matthew will have the next question
First.
as the first person to be asked. I have a long, question here, but I think it's pretty much to the point following what we just talked about. Some have said that the town hall has been slow in response to residents' requests. Many problems have gone to legal court action. How will you influence the process without relying on going to legal action by the town? There's been many cases that have been forwarded to the legal department, and they're basically suing the residents. So what is your response to that?
Yeah, I'm kind of familiar with people that have had kind of difficulties in conveying their concerns to town hall, and I'm sure town hall gets inundated at times from lots of different residents. I think there really is a need to have sort of an ombudsman, someone that acts as a kind of a conduit for issues that residents would like to convey to town hall, rather than just picking up a phone and just playing a lottery on trying to reach someone there. They may not know which department would be best suited to handle their concern. So I really see it not being a smooth kind of line of communication with the town, and I don't know if I don't think it's deliberate. I think sometimes that just by human nature, you can get kind of caught up in lots of different things, and sometimes you have to decide which have the highest priority.
Thank you, Matthew.
Tell Tim
Yeah.
he gets a minute and 20 seconds.
So you're getting time.
No,
Tim.
he gets a minute and 20. Okay,
John, relax.
no,
Relax.
Be fair here.
Some have said that the town hall has been slow in response to residents' requests. Many problems have gone to legal court action. How will you, as a selectman, influence the process without relying on legal action by the town?
Minute 20.
You have time.
Thank you, Mark. So I would prefer to keep everything possible out of legal matters. And I find a lot of the time when I've seen residents come with an issue, they sometimes will have trouble presenting that issue. And it's not a very clear way to do it. And I would personally prefer to work with any resident with an issue they'd like to present to make it as clear and decisive as possible, and fight for what they want if it's for the benefit of everybody. I met with a gentleman on North Street just yesterday who was really upset with the speed that the cars have been going through down North Street over the past month and a half. People have been flying down there, and he has a valid concern where some years ago he actually had a car crash into his house. Now, I've also got some friends up the street who had cars crash into their vehicles parked on the side of North Street. So I considered it a valid concern, but where he had before approached and not brought forward anything that could be of benefit to the town other than lowering the speed limit for safety, which is a huge priority, we were able to talk and find some solutions that we hopefully will be able to present to the town for the benefit of everybody.
Thank you.
Sorry, it's a short amount of time to answer a question like that.
No, I have a follow-up on that, because what I'm hearing, and forgive me for interjecting here, but to follow up on this question is,
Timothy's first.
This is a question and answer session here.
Right, Timothy.
So Timothy, who should be the conduit that gets that message across to the town manager and the town selectmen? That's the question, I think.
So, Mark, there is a process already where our meeting members are supposed to be representing us throughout our precincts. So that is something I've taken to heart, and whenever somebody has asked me, I've gone to them, I've met with them, we've discussed and tried to move forward with the issue that they're having. It's not always successful. There's often differing opinions, and sometimes my own opinion will be other than the person requesting, but that doesn't mean that we can't have a good conversation about it, be on the same page, and be able to present that publicly so that his point can be made, or his or her point can be made better. That's how I personally feel about that, and that works up through the selectmen, and our town manager can be involved with that as well, but it's up to the meeting members individually to bring those to the town.
Thank you, Timothy. Matthew, you want to address that? Follow up?
Can you just repeat the question again, please?
The question is the residents bring up issues to the Board of Selectmen. There's a session in the beginning of the meeting where people bring up their issues. And I think the follow-up question is, who should be the conduit that gets that message across to the Board of Selectmen? It seems like they're talking to the Board of Selectmen and the town manager, but the message doesn't seem to sink in. I mean, there's no follow-up.
Yeah, and I've encountered that even as a town meeting member. It's frustrating when I have a specific issue with adjacent property owner encroaching onto a town-owned open space, and I've gone to the selectmen and provided photos and plot plans, and I've been told I should start a petition. So sometimes people say the Danvers way is to look the other way, and I think it's kind of a systemic problem where residents come forward with problems, and yet nothing happens. It's just as if they fall through the cracks, and it's very frustrating. And people, after a while, just give up and don't even bother.
All right, thank you, Matthew. But I think the point, and forgive me for interjecting, the point is that nobody's listening at the Board of Selectmen's meeting and the town manager sitting there, and there's no follow-up. So that's my whole point of this question, because it has been noted, and you've experienced it, and I have experienced it, is that we bring up issues and it takes forever for anybody to respond to them.
Matthew is first.
Matthew, your question is, what do you plan to do for the residents and taxpayers in Danvers? How have you been involved in representing Danvers voters and taxpayers in the past? The key word is taxpayers.
Well, I think what is often a reoccurring conversation is with our quarterly tax bills. It's often, it seems to be a shock. People don't understand the process that your house is, the valuation of your property increases, and so you get a corresponding increase in tax bills. So oftentimes, there's no real solution other than just providing facts, even though that's not as satisfying as maybe other options.
Well, the question is what do you plan to do for the residents and taxpayers?
You've got 15 seconds.
Just a quick.
What do I plan to do?
Yes.
Well, I think to keep the tax bills reasonable. I mean, we're going to be seeing some significant reductions in state aid in the near future. So probably we'll just try to keep those as the impact minimal as possible.
Thank you, Matthew. John is bugging me. He's giving.
Tim gets 1 minute and 10 seconds. Just to let you know.
Oh,
You want this done
you're
right?
good. You're doing fine. You're
1
doing.
minute. He's got.
You're
Tim's
doing
got-
fine.
Tim's got 1 minute and 10.
You're doing fine. I'm gonna put on my referee hat
Yeah,
here.
go ahead. Give
Look
it
at
to
that.
Tim now.
Look at that.
Tim's
Look
turn.
at that.
It's Tim's turn.
Tim's turn. What do you plan to do for the residents and taxpayers in Danvers? How have you been involved in representing Danvers voters and taxpayers in the past?
110.
All right, am I good?
Yes, you're good.
So, I agree with Matt. Is there has been a lot of outcrying when the tax bills have gone up. We've got Prop 2.5, and through various means, through property increases, as well as it's a lot to the budget. It really is. But the biggest complaint is those on fixed income and those who have a budget that can barely afford to live in this town as is are really struggling to deal with these increases. This hits me close to home, where my parents are in the process of retiring. They just bought a condo in Salem Village, and I'm very excited for them to be moving in there. But is a direct concern going forward, where I want to make sure that they can comfortably live in this town as well. So it's a double-edged sword, because this town has some phenomenal amenities. We've got a great rec department. We've got phenomenal utilities, and we're really one of the best around for that, which is why we have such a high draw. So it's a challenge to try to reduce tax increases, total dollar amount, not just percentage, while trying to still make sure we don't lose what makes this town great.
Thank you, Tim.
Okay, Tim's next. Tim's first.
John, you are watching over my shoulder. Boy, you are.
You
That's
want-
good. That's all right.
You wanted me here.
That's all right. I can take it. I can take it.
Hey, Tim.
But you know what? I'm
Hey,
going to
Tim,
have.
This isn't like we rehearsed this. This is what you see is what you get with him and I.
That's all right. No, we've had a lot of fun over the years, and this is one of the most unusual campaign
Yeah.
campaign seasons. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that I don't know how many viewers we have, but every viewer is a vote. So this is an opportunity for you guys and Maureen to present their case to the public and get a vote on June 2nd in, where were they having the elections?
The high school or mail-in, whatever works.
Okay, great. All right, next question, and this will have a follow-up on this thing as well, and I will follow up on the tax issue as well in a second. Next question is, this is
So Tim first.
for Tim first?
Yep.
Okay, Tim. What level of constituent service will you provide, and how will that service differentiate you from the other candidates? How much personal time do you expect to spend on the selectman business each week? This is a very good question. So, Tim, it's up to you.
So, Mark, that is a phenomenal question. And one of the reasons why I feel that I am really good fit for this position is that I do own my own company, and I do make my own decisions, and I do have flexibility and availability. The biggest problem that a lot of people my age have right now is they say they don't have time. For me, I can make time. I have the ability to adjust my schedule, to choose what I want to do, and I want to be able to meet with the residents of Danvers. I want to hear what they have to say. I am here to serve the residents of Danvers, and I will be fully available for anybody that needs that. And that's about all I have on that matter, Mark, is I am able to do it.
Thank you. Matthew, I'm going to repeat the question because I think it's a little longer than usual. What level of constituent service will you provide, and how will that service differentiate you from the other candidates? How much personal time do you expect to spend on selectman business each week? Matthew.
So that sounds like a open-ended question. So I work full-time during the day, so I hate to say that kind of is a priority for me. So, but you know, being a selectman is kind of it's not really a set schedule, and so I often find myself at town hall during the day. So, for example, the traffic advisory committee, I attend those meetings. I've attended Smith School building committees at 8 o'clock in the morning, planning board meetings at 8 o'clock in the morning. So, you know, when it's called for, I'm definitely available. and always available by phone or by email. I answer emails in a timely fashion. So I'm available now as a town meeting member.
10 seconds.
People can knock on the door anytime. So
5 seconds.
Thank you, Matthew. I raised that question because that's been asked over and over again every single year. Because being a selectman, you have to be available. This is a second job, basically. It's a part-time job, but it's still a job. So the follow-up that I have, and this is for Tim right now, the follow-up.
No, Matthew's first.
Okay, Matthew is first. Follow up on Matthew. Going back to the previous question regarding taxpayers and how have you been involved in representing Danvers voters? How do you believe the tax calculations are affecting our residents? Our residents are not just the seniors, because we do take care of our seniors. However, the word on the street is that the young families are having a harder time than the seniors. So, Matthew?
yeah, so I think you're talking about tax classification, right? And the difference between residential and commercial.
That's
And
part of
that
it.
annual kind of taking the percentages and trying to manipulate them so they're kind of balanced. Yeah, I can't really speak. I'm not an expert on that, but I can say from a budget perspective, I always attend all the budget meetings and before the finance committee, and always more than eager to speak to specific line items and various projects that the town departments are looking for funding, just to because we're already at a debt levy, and so that's what's driving these tax increases. As Mark is fond of saying, tax and spend, tax to the max.
Thank you, Matthew. I remember that phrase. Tim, I'm going to repeat that in a summary form. I don't have it written down, but basically, I know that the town of Danvers does a very good job in trying to protect and devote enough revenue to the senior residents. However, the young couples, the ones that are starting families, similar to what you guys are going through, have you encountered a resistance by the town to improve the tax situation?
Well, I feel actually very qualified to answer that, Mark, because I believe I am the only person running or sitting for the Board of Selectmen that would be considered a young family. I am 2 generations younger than most sitting and a generation younger than those running. So from the standpoint of a young family, it is difficult when you're starting your life. When you're trying to move to a town, trying to buy a house, taxes are definitely something to consider. On the other hand, amenities are as well. How much you're paying for things like sports, how much you're paying to send your kids for summer camp and things like that. Danvers has really some phenomenal options in that. So while it's taxed in general, maybe a little bit higher than some of our neighbors, we do have some camp programs and things like that to help offset that cost of the young families. I truly could go over line item by line item of the budget and make some recommendations, but overall, it's really a challenging thing to just say, hey, what are you going to cut out of the budget? It's almost impossible to answer that question.
We will follow up on that we have a program that we're going to conduct end of May in regard to the budget and to the warrant articles that are being prepared. Now, there's already a lot of talk in regards to the budget being reduced But the one thing that I have found, and I will share this with you, is that the only thing that is being reduced is the state aid, Chapter 70, which is the school education piece that the state provides. But nobody's talking about reducing the real estate tax collection. So that's one thing that you're going to be challenged with when you get elected to the board. So the personal time that you expect to spend on constituent service is very significant. And this is just a statement from me. I don't need an answer from you. I don't think you should. But I hope that you take that very seriously, because it is something that has to be done for the residents. And this is not public service. This is your service to your family and the town. So the one thing that I want to stress is that it's very important, and there is a lot of time involved. So now that we've gone through the prepared questions, I have 14 minutes left. And what you have is a 3-minute closing statement.
No, Matthew was second, so he should be first, because he was second on the opening statement.
That's what I have on my list,
I'm
John.
just saying,
John,
Matthew
I
is
got it.
second.
I got it taken care of.
Tim should be
Thank
the
you.
closer. Okay, in case you didn't know. Matthew is first, Tim is second. Did they want 4 minutes?
You know,
We can do 4 minutes if they want.
we can do. I'm gonna let it go to up to 4 minutes, but I think this is something. This is your presentation to the residents of Danvers and the voters of Danvers. So Matthew
is
Duggan
first because he
is
was second in the
first.
opening.
Yes, Dad.
Jeez.
Matthew, you're on with a closing statement, and you're permitted to use up to 4 minutes. So Matthew Duggan, Board of Selectmen, here we go.
So I'll just talk about an issue that I think is kind of at the top of the list, and it has to do with development and zoning in Danvers, because it's really out of control at the moment. Some of these projects that are coming through, like 44 Maple and the big one now at 141 Pine Street, these are huge projects that are not allowed by right. And they are really pushing Danvers towards a city status. So, we all enjoy the town type of government where we can speak with selectmen and the town manager. You don't really have that kind of close contact in a city type environment. So I think these projects that are being built, and again, not built by right with variances and special permits, they are eating away at our affordable housing. Tim mentioned young families finding it difficult to live in Danvers. These new homes that go on online, and they're not even homes, they're condos. They're selling for $600,000 a piece. A young family can't afford a mortgage on a property like that. And also, after the 2020 census, we'll be at a new level for affordable. Right now, we're at 10.3. We're likely to be pushed below 10, and that opens up a Pandora's box of 40B projects. And those types of projects, like the ones we just saw approved in Peabody, are just over the top in terms of density, lack of parking, and traffic too. That's a huge concern for folks in Danvers. They think that these developments cause traffic, but in reality, it's usually just pass through to large development in Beverly with Cummings and up in Burnham Road. And so those are challenges that we face in the next several years. How do we deal with this traffic? Do we really want to widen Route 62, the 2 lanes in each direction, widen High Street? So, development and that's out of control, not by right, not in line with the zoning bylaws that town meeting passed, and traffic. It's just, where it's more like a city every day. And I think that the people that I speak with, that's not what they want. They didn't move here for that, and they feel powerless to constrain it. And that's really, that's probably the one thing that's really near and dear to my heart, is when I go to these public meetings and I really challenge the ability of like the ZBA to give relief to these high-powered attorneys to push their projects through that do nothing for the town, and the developers walk away with millions of dollars in profit. That's really essentially all I have to say.
Thank you, Matthew. That was great. I appreciate that. And I've seen you, at these meetings, and you're always there. So now,
Tim's got 4 minutes.
Tim, you have 4 minutes for a closing statement, and welcome to the Board of Selectmen race. Tim.
Thank you, Mark. So I am very happy to have been given this opportunity to run for selectman, both in my life and at the suggestion of the people who first recommended it and put the idea in my head. I've been a part of this community since I began here. For 12 years now, we've owned our home, and I am deeply rooted despite being raised elsewhere. My kids are here, my wife is here, my family is here. I've got grandparents, my wife's last grandparents are here, my parents are retiring. This is my community as much as it is yours, and I am standing here next to you to serve, both as a meeting member and, if given the opportunity, selectman. I'm looking forward to the budget hearings coming up. That was one of those things that got delayed at the beginning of COVID, and that's where we will be deciding quite a few of those answers. I don't have to be a selectman to do that. I'm already working on that as a meeting member. As a selectman, it would give me the option to finalize things like warrant articles for the meeting. And right now, we do have a couple of very big ones that would have quite the effect, such as the big deal with livestock in town. I personally own chickens, and I'm excited to give the opportunity to vote for the opportunity for every family to have their kids learn about life cycles and things like that. That was denied them due to a Band-Aid situation back, I believe, in the 80s, when they restricted all livestock to Zone 2 only. So as far as how I hope to serve this community, I hope to just be able to do more of what I'm doing right now. There's some great people in this town. I'm out working side by side with them. I'm out going to people's houses. I'm out talking to the community. Every day I am here with you. This is our town, and I really honestly hope that I can serve you better than I am right now by becoming a selectman if you choose. So, Mark, I'm not going to take up much more time. I'm here for anybody that would like to talk, and I'll be, if we're allowed to, I'll be standing downtown. I'm fairly easy to look up if anybody would like to give me a call and talk, ask me what my opinion is of anything that I haven't discussed here tonight. I really do want to congratulate Matt Duggan. It's not an easy decision to choose to run for selectman. It is quite the commitment. Maureen as well. It's really a commitment to serve the town. So anybody who chooses to run for a position, I'm proud of that you have that option and that you want to do it. We have several meeting member seats that are vacant right now. And to be honest, I'd love to see a younger generation, my generation, step up and really commit to working with all of the town leadership and becoming town leadership. It's very difficult for families these days with the amount of sports kids are into and with all the extracurricular activities to find the time. But I'm happy to have chosen to find the time to be here and to be here for you guys.
Well, thank you, Tim. This is...
I have a question.
Yes.
Because we got 6 minutes to go. So the question I have for you guys is, with the social, can you see me? Yeah, there we go. With the social distancing, can the candidates still stand out on Danvers Square if they wanted to? I would think it's a yes. that no one could stop you guys from doing the social distancing campaigning, I guess I'd have to call it. So,
Joe, if I could, we're in a tough spot where, believe me, I've been thinking about it. But the fact is that most of the town is shut down. There are very little traffic in comparison to normal. So standing out there, you'd probably see 10 to 15 cars where you'd see 100 before. So it's been a tough decision. And Matt and I have both said, this is not your typical campaign. And we have plans to move forward. But as far as respecting social distancing, respecting the orders of the town, it's really at this point the better decision to avoid public places just for our health. Once more information is released, I do hope to be out there. I'm sure Matt does too. And we'll see what happens. But with the fluidity of the situation, it's completely out of our control, and there's not much we can do about it.
Matt, wait a minute. Let Matt comment, because you only got 3 minutes to go.
Wait a minute. One thing that we need to do is we need to get to the barber shop. Both of us are having hair that is over our neck. And
I can't deal with the beard anymore. I have to shave it off.
You don't shave.
So let Matt give a 1 minute answer.
Matthew, how about you?
About the social distance campaigning, if you could or not could.
Yeah,
A great answer.
again, the bullhorn.
Bullhorns, there you go. How about a horse? And
Yeah, I can just, with the bullhorn, I can stay 6 feet away and you can still hear me clearly.
Just to let
I
you know,
just stand up near your house.
LBJ did it in a 1960 campaign on the corner of Boylston and Berkeley when he was vice president running in the 1960 election, and he was on a horse.
Well,
okay,
gentlemen,
we have
3
minutes to go.
That's my 3 minutes right now, John. John, relax. Sit
not
down. Have a glass of water.
I helped you. Come on.
Oh, you know what? I would like to thank both of you. And I'd like to thank Maureen as well, because she tried, but I guess she's busy at work because she's lending out a lot of money, I guess, from Salem 5. So we'll get together with her if she would prefer later on. But right now, I want to thank both of you for volunteering to become or to be on the ballot for the Board of Selectmen. It is not an easy job, and it is not a glorious job. Everybody thinks that they have so much power in their hands. They do not. So enjoy your ride. I've done that for 6 years, and I did 10 years of finance committee, and that was a ride and a half. So enjoy it and relax and go out and campaign some way to get the votes. I just hope it doesn't turn out to be 100 vote count for each of you.
Well,
and remember,
just released something on the mail-in ballots today that I haven't had a chance to read. So hopefully they'll figure out a good way to do it.
Say, I'm sorry, we missed that.
They just released information on mail-in ballots short time ago that I haven't had a chance to read yet. So hopefully that'll have good information and we know timing and how we're moving forward.
Well, that is like an absentee ballot, basically, what I used to do when I was on the board, because even at that time, I used to do a lot of traveling. And I never knew whether I was going to be here or not. And you ask for an absentee ballot, they'll mail you a ballot, and you sign it, and you send it back in, and you've done your duty. However, I personally prefer to go to the high school
1 minute
and enjoy the experience of voting. That is the pleasure of our democracy. And one of the things that I'm afraid of is that this will put a crunch on the number of people that will come out and vote. And I would encourage everyone to come out and vote because it's so important. So we're at
30 seconds.
30 seconds to go. Thank you, gentlemen, and good luck. And we'll see you on June 2nd.
Best wishes,
Thank
Tim.
you, Mark. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Danvers. Hope to see you soon.
Thank you.
Take care. Have a good night, Danvers.
All right, guys.
All right. See you.